Hi, welcome back to the Nordic Watch channel. I'm Anders from Finland, and today a review of the first ever Orient Bambino on this channel. I have the 36mm version of the Bambino, which is called the Bambino 5S, or also nicknamed the Baby Bambino. Really excited because I've been contemplating getting a Bambino for a long time and always hesitating due to the larger size on the older Bambinos. Just because whenever I've handled those 40mm or 41mm Orient Bambinos, I think they're just too large for my 6.5-inch wrist when I put them on. 40mm is okay otherwise, but on dress watches, the lack of a substantial bezel on the watches, making the dial so big, also means that a 40mm dress watch wears pretty large on the wrist. So when Orient released this 36mm version, maybe 1.5 years ago or 2 years ago, I was really excited when I heard the news, and I was pretty sure that I was going to get it at some point in my watch collecting journey. And now, once I got the opportunity, I picked this up secondhand actually. I went ahead and got it. I've always been kind of sad that I haven't had Orient Bambino, because it'd be such a great watch if it would be a little bit smaller. So really excited to finally have this 36mm version. Now Orient makes these in 4 different color variations, if I'm not mistaken. I'll put them up on the screen as I scroll through the web page. But this one is the most subdued version, I'd say, all in stainless steel and with the champagne dial and these really dark blue hands. I'll go ahead and put some Amazon affiliate links down below. This one was actually quite challenging to find on Amazon, and I can't find all the color variations for you guys, but I'll see what I can do and try to find some place where you can get this watch if it's not on Amazon. But price-wise, I looked this up on Amazon, and the versions I found were around $200 or euros, so I think that's a pretty fair price considering this is a really nice dress watch from a known brand with an in-house automatic movement and with hacking and hand winding. So that's it for the intro. Let's get more into the review of this watch. Okay, so probably the most substantial thing about this watch is the dimensions, so I'm going to go through those right off the bat, because that's the thing that has changed the most. So this watch has a diameter of 36.4 millimeters. It has a thickness of 12.5-ish, that being partly due to the boxed mineral crystal here on the top, giving it that kind of a vintage look. We have a 42mm lug to lug, which is really small, and I actually like that. So and then a big negative, a 17mm lug width, which I just can't understand. The Bambinos have been using weird lug widths earlier. Also, I think they've had like 21, 19, and now 17mm. Why? I have no idea, but that's a fact. So 17mm lug widths, bummer, but what can you do? I actually tried, and I was able to fit this 18mm suede strap on this Bambino anyway, so not such a horrible thing after all. I'm actually going to start with my biggest negative with this watch. I don't usually do that, but I think it's I was really surprised when I got this watch, and I wasn't expecting this, so it was kind of a surprise for me, and it caught me off guard, and I was a little bit disappointed. But yeah, it's actually the bracelet on this watch. I was not expecting it to be this petite, and it's actually quite feminine, and it makes this watch feel more of a lady's watch than a unisex watch. but that's actually only because of the bracelet. When I swap this out and put it on the leather strap I just showed you, it completely changes the presence. So let's discuss the bracelet before we move on with the rest of the review. So we have a kind of an oyster style bracelet with these middle links that are somewhat protruding. They're a little bit higher up than the outer links, and the links are brushed and they have this kind of polishing on the outer edges of the middle link. It's an okay looking bracelet, but it has a really strong taper down to something like 14 millimeters from 17, so that makes it really small. The links are, however, solid to my understanding, and they use your basic push pins, so that's pretty easy to size the bracelet. It does have hollow end links, as you can expect at this price point. Another negative with this bracelet is this butterfly clasp, which makes it look like a concealed clasp. That's okay, but it actually does not have any micro adjustments, so that's a bit of a problem if you happen to be unlucky and you don't get a good fit by removing some links. To my understanding, there is no wiggle room and you can't have any micro adjustments, so then it's just tough luck. The clasp is also feels pretty cheap, and there's a lot of like wiggle room here, and you can actually it can actually be difficult to secure this clasp, and you might try putting it on crooked like that, so not so good. And I'll just show this on the wrist to show you what it looks like before I swap it out to the leather strap. So there you can see the Bambino on my 6.5-inch wrist, a really nice size for a wrist like mine. Do keep in mind that it does look a little bit larger on camera than it does in person. I'll do a more thorough wrist shot towards the end with the leather strap. This is just to show you about the bracelet, what I mean by it being so small and flimsy. It's really thin down at the clasp, tapering down from 17 to 14 millimeters, and it makes it feel more of a women's watch than a unisex watch. But as you can see, the size itself is really nice, and it gives really that vintage kind of classy look, I think. But let's remove the bracelet and put it on this suede or leather strap. There we go, off the bracelet and on the leather strap, which is actually 18 millimeters, as you can see. A pleasant surprise that it was rather easy to put 18 millimeter strap, as long as it's quite soft like this one here. I tried putting it on this 18 millimeter collar strap, and it was a bit disappointing that that really didn't work out so well. No idea why Orient uses these weird lug widths, but it's quite frustrating when you have a nice collection of straps in the most usual sizes, and then you have a watch like this and you can't use any of your nice straps, so that's kind of annoying. But anyways, here's one last look at the bracelet before we put it to the side, and never to be used again unless I borrow this watch to my girlfriend, which I probably will because she seems to like it. Anyways, let's continue with the review now that we have it on the leather strap. So we went through the dimensions. Let's go through some other specs. Starting off with the case. We have a mostly polished case. We do have some brushing here on the top of the lugs, which I think is a nice touch and gives some detail to this watch. Otherwise, it's a really basic case. nice curvature on the lugs anyways, and I do really like that boxed mineral crystal on top. It really gives a nice vintage look to the watch, and I've always been a fan of these kind of distortions that you get with kind of these differently shaped crystals. Another big positive on this watch for me is that the dial itself is actually a bit curved, so that is another factor that gives that kind of a vintage look to the watch, and I really like that, especially in combination with the boxed mineral crystal. I think the watch has a nicely proportioned crown here at the 3 o'clock position. Easy to use. We have hand winding and hacking. As you can see, the second hand stops. Also a really nice and secure feeling on this crown. No wobbling whatsoever. I actually am pretty pleased with this crown. Also, I think the size and the shape of it is also good for this case. We do have a small Orient logo etched there, matching the logo on the dial. Zooming in on the dial here, we have a really timeless design in my opinion. Just your pretty basic tapering hour indices, which are applied and silver colored or steel colored. We have a small Orient logo applied there also, and Orient automatic printed below, and also water resistant at the 6 o'clock. Double marker here on the 12 o'clock, and simple date window at the 3 o'clock. Nice minute track along the outer edge of the dial also gives it a nice kind of detail, but still really minimalistic in design, which I like. One thing that I'm not such a big fan of with this dial, or actually with the hands, is, well, the hands, because they're a really dark blue. I think they're trying to give it that, well, actually the light catches it pretty nicely there. So they are blued hands. I have no idea if they're painted or if they are blued by heating, probably painted though. There you can actually see the blue-ish color on the hands. It's a really dark blue, and it doesn't come out in all sorts of lighting, but sometimes you can get a glimpse of it just like that. I would have preferred the hands to be just plain old steel or silver colored, just like the indices, but they opted for this alternative, and well, it does work, and it gives nice contrast between the hands and the dial, which makes it easier to read the time, of course. But other than that, I think just your traditional steel colored hands would have been maybe a more pleasing aesthetic, at least for myself. That being said, the overall look on the dial and the watch is great, and the champagne colored dial has this really slight sunburst effect, and if you look really closely you can see this kind of really thin radial pattern, which looks a lot like dials on older watches from the 50s or 60s. No frame on the date window, which could have looked nice to have metal frames around it, but in this style the date window is really subtle and discreet, so I think it's pretty fitting for the watch. Flipping it over and looking at the back side here, we have in-house Orient F6724 movement. It has 22 joules, operates at 21,600 beats per hour, and as mentioned does come with hacking and hand winding, so a really nice basic workhorse movement. And I like that it has a see-through case back, and they actually went ahead and have some finishing here on the rotor, which I think looks pretty decent. A little bit noisy, this movement, if you listen closely. So it's a little bit noisy, but I do like the fact that it has a bidirectional winding, so the rotor doesn't spin like crazy if you flick your wrist in a funny way and it starts turning in the non-winding direction. So I'm always for bidirectional winding and really happy that this has that also. Let's just take a listen to that hand winding action too. Pretty basic, feels pretty smooth also. Not the best I've tried, but not the worst either. So all in all, the movement side on this watch is solid in my opinion. The case back seems to be just your push case back, not a screw down case back, and the watch has 30 meters of water resistance to my knowledge. So not something you want to go swimming with, but not something you have to be afraid of if you happen to splash water on it when you're washing your hands. Pretty fitting for a dress watch, all in all. Just wanted to quickly bring in my Seiko Seahorse from the 60s, I believe, just to compare with this Bambino, because I think design-wise these two watches look like they could be from the same time period. So I think Orient did a good job on designing a watch in a really classic and elegant fashion and making it look really vintage. So kudos to Orient for that. Actually, now looking at this, I think this Bambino would look absolutely gorgeous on a beads of rice bracelet, like the one on this Seiko Seahorse. And always useful to get some size comparisons. So here we have it side by side with the SARB 033, also a really popular model among watch enthusiasts. Next up, the Seiko SNKL 41, pretty similarly sized, a little bit smaller than the SNKL 41 still. Here it is next to a Zin 556, and last but not least, next to a SKX 009. So hopefully this will help you get a better grasp about the size of the watch if you're considering getting one. Now back on the wrist, and this time on the leather strap. Just a fantastic size, even for a 6.5-inch wrist. Not too small in any way, shape or form, at least for my taste. I really adore this size and much more prefer this one to the 40mm Bambinos. So it's a bit on the thicker side with that boxed mineral crystal, and that will undoubtedly be a scratch magnet, and if you happen to bash this watch on a doorknob or something, it will probably leave a nasty mark, but just have to remember to try and be careful. Not much more to say about this really simple and elegant watch. It doesn't have a ton of features like a dive watch or anything like that, so I don't really have anything more to say about it other than that it's a really nice design, and I don't know a lot of options in this price category for this kind of a stylish old school dress watch, maybe other than the Timex Marlin. Seiko Presage models are substantially more expensive often, and they are often also larger than this one. And it's actually a great watch to get if you're trying to get a watch for your girlfriend or significant other. I think this is a great unisex watch that you can have in your mutual watch collection. So you can use it when you want to, and also you can lend it out to your girlfriend or wife. That's pretty much all I have to say in this video. Thanks for watching, and if you're not subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. Give this video a like and comment down below if you have anything to ask. I am really active at answering comments, so anything you have in mind, give me a comment down below and I will answer. Also, check me out on Instagram at Nordic Watch Channel if you want to see more watch-related content. But other than that, nothing more to say. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.